Hello and welcome to the editorial analysis of The Hindu. Today we shall be discussing the newspaper of the 22nd of February. So coming to the first article, now this being a Friday, this is the customary yes, no, it's complicated article. And the context or the question for today is that after the terrorist strike in Pulwama, is war even an option for India? So coming to the three different opinions, the first opinion here is that yes, definitely war is very much an option and indeed it should be something that should be pursued. So the first point in this favor is that yes, war is an option because already a low intensity war is what is being waged by Pakistan against India. This is something that can be seen recently in Pulwama and previously in Pathankot, Uri and Nagarota. In all these attacks, what is being seen is that Pakistan is targeting our military bases. For that matter, the Air Force, the military or the Navy, these are the targets of Pakistan. So this is amounting to a degree of war, even though it is a low intensity war, but yes, it is some degree of war which is happening. Besides that, what is happening is that for the past 30 years, Pakistan is practicing something called proxy war against India. And this is with the intention to bleed India through 1,000 cuts. So if war is something that is already existing, then why deny it is the first point which has been mentioned. The second issue which has been talked about here is with regards to a knee-jerk reaction versus long-term planning. Now here the author is saying that some knee-jerk reaction is something that is required also because all the tolerance levels of India is something that have been breached and there is huge amount of public outrage which needs to be assuaged. So that is one point which has been mentioned by the author here. The second issue is that some long-term planning is also what is required in national interest. So definitely a long-term vision is what is required, but some reaction today is also warranted. So that is one analysis which has been given. Another thing which the author has mentioned is about raising the cost for a proxy war. Now this is a very good point which we can use. The author says that for a proxy war to be carried out in India at present, it is something that is feasible and affordable for Pakistan. But if India's preparedness is such that it becomes difficult for Pakistan to carry out a proxy war, then that is a victory in itself. So India should raise its preparedness to such a level that the cost for waging a proxy war in India, for that matter of sending infiltrations into India, is something that becomes very high for Pakistan and eventually it becomes impossible for Pakistan to come and attack within India. So this is one good point which has been mentioned here. Another issue is with regards to the response that should be there. So here some good language is what is used in the article. The author says that the response should be proportionate. It should be multidisciplinary in its approach. That is, it should be comprising of diplomatic, economic and military measures. Economic measures is something that we have already taken. Diplomatic measures is also what we have taken at the level of the Pakistan's ambassador. But what is important is that some military measures be also taken. So that is the response aspect which has been discussed. The next issue is with regards to conventional deterrence. Now, conventional deterrence is the deterrence that is there at present. India is a nuclear state. We have a very, very powerful military. But this conventional deterrence is what has failed at present. That is what has been highlighted. Obviously, it is failed because it is not being able to deter Pakistan from carrying out its proxy war and the state-sponsored terrorism in India. So that is what has been highlighted. The second issue is with regards to the need for an effective military deterrence. Obviously, if the conventional deterrence is what has failed, then there is definitely a need for some effective military deterrence, and this can be done through military operations. So the author is calling for some air strikes, or for that matter, some across LOC, trans LOC strikes similar to the surgical strikes which have taken place. Also, the author is calling for some covert operations by the military to ensure effective military deterrence to Pakistan. So these are the points in the favor of yes, a war is what is warranted. Coming next to the second set of arguments which says that no, a war is not warranted here. Now in this particular case, the author has criticized the capability of the Indian army. He has said, first and foremost, he talks about India's capability of an effective and a sustained campaign against Pakistan. Now here the author discusses that India's arsenal, the army's arsenal, is largely of the vintage category. He says that 68% of the equipment which the military has is vintage. And he also talks about, he gives an example of the Air Force where he says that it should have the number of battalions that should be there in the Air Force is what is not existing at present. The man force in the Indian Air Force is also something that is less. Further, the author says that India at present cannot even sustain a war for 10 days with Pakistan, so that is also a major challenge. Further, he talks about the modern age wars. Now here you should know that in the modern age, wars is not about manpower, it is not about the numbers, but rather it is about technology. So in this front, India is lacking. For in technology, India is not very well prepared, and that is one criticism against the preparedness of the defense forces in India. The third issue which the author raises here in his support of the argument that India cannot afford a war is the two-front war for India. Now the author here says that China is an important country in this particular case, and it is no secret that China's support is to Pakistan. So if India is in a war with Pakistan, China can get agitated and China can open war at a second front. Now India even today is not prepared for a two-front war is what has been highlighted here, that though in doctrine, though in theory, India says that India is prepared for the two-front war, but this is something that is not sustainable and not possible for India. So it is this one particular point which India should keep in mind and should not go for a war with Pakistan. Another issue is that war is largely an act of political intent. Now here the author says that at present the Prime Minister has made a statement that he has let the army free to decide what it wants. But this, he says, is largely rhetoric, because whenever a war is carried out, it is always because of a political intent, it is a political decision, and the army is merely an executor of the decision of the political masters. In no country in the world are the armed forces equipped enough to decide that whether or not a war should be carried out. And in this regard, the author makes a good statement where he says that this political decision of whether or not a war should be carried out is taken every year during the budget when they cut the defense budget. So this is something that is very, very important, that the politicians, by not updating the army, not providing adequate budgets to the army, has already decided that it is not in the favor of war. So that is the point which has been highlighted here. Coming to the third aspect with regards, which is its complicated aspect of the article. The first analysis which is done here is with regards to a comparison that has been drawn with the 2001 Parliament attack. Now you should know that in the aftermath of this Parliament attack, an operation known as Operation Prakram is what the Indian government had initiated against Pakistan. Now the author is saying that this particular Pulwama attack, no doubt it is a horrendous attack, and it is an attack on the image of India, it is an attack on the armed forces of India, but still it cannot be considered an attack equivalent to the Parliament attack, because the Parliament attack was an attack on India's symbol of democracy, which is the Parliament. So this was a much more grave attack as compared to the Pulwama attack. So a response of this nature is something that is not warranted, is what has been highlighted here. Another thing which has been highlighted in this aspect of analysis are 4 questions which the author raises. He says that if India wants a war, then it has to first and foremost answer 4 questions. The first question is that what is the desired end state? If the desired end state is to completely finish Pakistan's army, or if the desired end state is to buy some time of peace. Now if the first desired state is that the Pakistan army should be completely destroyed, this is something that is not possible. Pakistan army cannot be destroyed at present. And the second issue is that if the issue is about buying greater duration of peace, because if by fighting a war what is going to happen is that for some duration peace is what can be brought, then in that case there are better ways to get this peace for a longer duration. This can be done even through diplomacy. So that is something that has been highlighted in this aspect of the question. The second question which India should ask is with regards to the social and economic impact of war on India. Now here the author uses the example of Kargil war, where he says that a lot of India's resources was what was spent in this war, and these are the resources which are diverted from social and economic causes of a particular country, of a developing country like India. So can India afford this? That is one question which needs to be asked. The third question is with regards to India's international support. Now at present, definitely India has garnered a lot of international support, but this is something that is not sustainable, primarily because China is in the favor of Pakistan. Russia is also interested in having good relations with Pakistan. US also has interest in Pakistan. Pakistan as a key factor vis-a-vis Afghanistan is what is very important in today's geopolitics. So no country is going to spoil its relation with Pakistan, because Pakistan is going to have a major role and Pakistan has a major stake in Afghanistan. So this is one cause because of which India will not have a sustained international support. So that is one factor which India should consider. The next issue is with regards to national interest versus short-term political interest. Now here the author says that the national interest is a long-term one, and in no case national interest is subservient to the short-term political interest which might compel the government to take a random decision at present. So this is something which is analyzed in this particular article. De novo points are what are available here, and this is a very good analysis of the Pulwama attack. So that is the relevance. Coming to the next article. Picking sides in West Asia. Now this is a very, very important article, because in a nutshell this article is all about India and West Asia relationship, and this is an important part of the foreign relations. That is the importance here. Coming to the issues which have been discussed, the first issue is with regards to the traditional balancing approach. Now here you need to know that since the Gulf War of 1990 to 1991, the Gulf War was what was fought between the years 1990 to 91. In this particular war, the war was of a coalition of a lot of countries. More than 30 countries were there in this coalition. This was what was led by United States of America, and the war was against Iraq for the capture of Kuwait by Iraq. So this is some brief about the Gulf War. Now since the Gulf War, India has adopted a balancing approach. Now you should know about West Asia, that West Asia is a highly disturbed area because a large number of countries are what are fighting amongst each other. So in this particular situation, India followed the non-aligned movement approach here, and this approach is what led to India having balanced relations with almost all the countries. Definitely this was of a lot of benefit because this allows for dehyphenated relations with majority of the countries. But also this comes with some limitations. Having a balanced approach prevents India from having geopolitical interest in this region. It constrains the geopolitical interests of India, because with no one particular country India can develop its relations fully. So that is what has been highlighted about the traditional balancing approach. The second issue which has been discussed is with regards to the Saudi Arabia and UAE collective campaign. Now what is being seen in West Asia is that Saudi Arabia and UAE are collectively campaigning against various militant and Islamist groups in this particular region. For example, the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt was defeated by Saudi Arabia and UAE collectively. Now this is something that is bringing India closer to these countries and also closer to Israel, because destruction of these Islamist group is something that is in the favor of Israel also, and this is something that is very much in the interest of India also. So that is one analysis with regards to West Asia. Another thing which is very important is with regards to India-Israel relations. Now in several previous videos we have discussed the India-Israel relations and how important Israel is to India at present, primarily for the defense and security needs of India. Now here you should know that Israel is one country which had helped India during the Kargil war. So India has high regards for Israel, and Israel is a great source of intelligence for India. So as a result of that, India does not wish to tarnish its relationship with Israel, despite the fact that Israel is largely at loggerheads with several other countries in West Asia. So this is one important dynamic which is arising in West Asia vis-a-vis India relations. Another issue which has been discussed is with regards to the economic partnership with Saudi Arabia and UAE. Now definitely India is having major economic relations with Saudi Arabia. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is on a visit to India, and he has committed approximately $100 billion of investment in India. This is primarily in the energy sector. This we had discussed yesterday also. And similarly, India is having a lot of economic partnership with UAE. So both these countries are important for India with regards to India's economic interest. Next we come to India-Iran relationship. Now India-Iran relationship is something that is undergoing some stress. This is largely because Iran is supporting Islamist militancy in West Asia, and this is something that is not very much to the liking of India. Another thing is that Iran is accused of transferring technology to these Islamist groups also. So this is something which is causing a lot of outrage against Iran, and India is also against this action of Iran, despite the fact that India has economic relations with Iran also. So that is one cause of concern. Another thing that you should know is that US has imposed a lot of sanctions against Iran. So this makes Iran an unreliable economic partner for India, and this is something that is again turning the relations between India and Iran. So that's something that is important for us. Another important fact with vis-a-vis India-Iran relation is the Shah Bahar port. Now the Shah Bahar port is a port which India is developing in Iran, and it is through this port that India wants access to Afghanistan, bypassing Pakistan. So Shah Bahar port is something that is very, very important to India, but progress in this regard is something that is going slow. Also, it is through the Shah Bahar port that India wants to connect to the North-South Transit Corridor, which is a link which will provide a link to Central Asia, West Asia and India. So this is something that is again important for India, but at present India-Iran relationship is something that is not good. So that is one analysis which has been given. Another thing which is important here is with regards to the Middle East Security Alliance, MISA. Now this is a security alliance which has been sponsored by United States of America, and this alliance comprises of UAE, of Saudi Arabia, of UAE and Israel. So these are the three countries which are a part of the security alliance, and this is an alliance which is developed against Iran. So this is a development in West Asia, and India is supposed to take a side in this particular development. So that is one analysis. So coming to the stand that India has taken, the stand here is that India has given up its traditional balancing approach and has openly declared its positions, if not openly, but at least in its actions, India is very much declaring its stand. So India's stand is with Israel as well as with the Gulf monarchies, and this is somehow against Iran. So that is the stand that India has taken in West Asia, and this is something that is an important development for us. We should have this understanding. India-West Asia relation is always very, very important from foreign relations point of view. So that is going to be the relevance. Coming to the next article, Healing Touch. Now the context here is with regards to the attacks that are being done on Kashmiri students in the aftermath of Pulwama attacks, and this is something that has largely happened in the state of Uttarakhand, in Dehradun in Uttarakhand, where hundreds of Kashmiri students have escaped this particular region, and it is also seen a pan-India phenomenon. It is not something that is happening in one state, but rather all over the country, and the students are moving back to Kashmir or to Delhi seeking security. Now some issues are what are important. The first issue that is important is that this matter is now with the Supreme Court, who is hearing on this issue. So indeed this matter is something that is important, and it is the legislative and the executive which has failed the Kashmiris, as a result of which the matter has now gone to the Supreme Court to provide protection to Kashmiri students. So this is something that is important. Another thing is the responsibility of the states. Now, as I mentioned, that definitely the states have failed the students, because of which the matter has gone to the Supreme Court. It is the responsibility of the government in every state to protect the citizens of India, and Kashmiri students are very much the citizens of this country, and their security is the responsibility of the state. So that is something that needs to be analyzed here. Another issue is with regards to stringent punishment. Now, what has been warranted in this editorial is that stringent punishment is what should be given to those who are bullying and harassing Kashmiri students. These people should not be let gone off, and some degree of punishment is what is needed for these people to ensure adequate deterrence in future. That is one important analysis. Next analysis is with regards to the majoritarian mobs. Now what is being seen is that based on ethnic identity, majoritarian mobs are harassing people. If Kashmiris are there, then it is their ethnic identity which is being targeted against, and this is something that is unacceptable in a country like India, which is so diverse and which is democratic. So that is something that needs to be analyzed here. Another issue is with regards to the political denial. Now what is being seen is that there is a pan-India political denial of this issue. Even the HRD minister has refused to accept such kind of attacks. Now what is being analyzed here is that this demotivates the Kashmiris. It gives a sense of alienation to the Kashmiris, which should not happen. Obviously, if the matter is with the Supreme Court, then such kind of an attack is what has happened on the Kashmiri students, and the politicians should accept it and take safeguards in this regard rather than overtly deny it. So that is the analysis which has been given here. Another very, very important point is with regards to anti-Pakistan and anti-Kashmiri sentiments. Now, whenever there is an anti-Pakistan sentiment in the country, why is the sentiment being converted into an anti-Kashmiri sentiment is what needs to be analyzed. Pakistan and Kashmir are two different areas altogether. Pakistan is our country, whereas Kashmir is a part of India itself. So whenever there is an anti-Pakistan sentiment, it should not convert into an anti-Kashmir sentiment is what has been warranted. And who can change this is the civil society, the media and the politicians and leaders at large. Everybody needs to introspect that why is this phenomenon that is taking place in this country is something that is threatening for the country. It is threatening for the integrity of India, and that is something that has been highlighted in the editorial. The editorial becomes important for us because insurgency in Kashmir is going to be a very, very important topic for the mains of this year. So that is the relevance. Coming to the next topic, half measures. Now the context here is with regards to some relaxation of rules which is related to the angel tax. Now for those of you who do not know what angel tax is, you can watch a detailed video on angel tax, which is the prelims discussion of the 20th of February. So see that video. But for brief, I will explain what angel tax is. Now whenever a startup is what is set up, that startup is going to require some funds. Now these funds are something that often do not come by banks. Or actually loans is what banks are supposed to give, but because the startups are unable to give some collateral to the bank or some bank guarantee, so banks are unable to fund startups. So these startups look for funds from outside, and several investors invest in these startups. So these investors sending their money to startups is something that is taxed. This money that startups get from investors is taxed, and this tax is what is known as angel tax, because this investment by investors in startups is what is known as angel investment. These investors come as angels for startups, so that is why they are called angel investors, and the tax is what is known as angel tax. Now some rules are what have been changed. So what are the rules that have come? I've highlighted the rules. According to these rules, investments up to 25 crore in companies that are less than 10 years old and with a total turnover of less than 100 crore will be exempted from the new angel tax. You can read these rules. These rules are something that are not very important for us to learn by heart. That is not the question that is going to be asked. You need to have an understanding of angel tax itself and the issues which are related to that. So the issue that is related to this is with regards to the investor confidence itself. Now what happens is that if the money that investors are giving to the startups is what is going to be taxed, the tax rate here is more than 30%, then obviously this impacts the investor confidence, and what happens is that the investors are reluctant in investing in startup companies, and this is impacting the entire economy as it is acting as a deterrent for startups itself. So that is one issue which emerges out of angel tax. The third issue is with regards to bureaucratic delays at rent seeking. Now what is important here is that even if these rules have been changed, still there is a scope of bureaucratic delays and rent seeking in this system. So this is what needs to be changed. The system needs to be made simple, and it needs to be made streamlined so that these delays and rent seeking is something that does not happen, and a culture of startups is what is built within India. So that is one analysis. Another issue is with regards to discretion. Now you need to know that this tax is what is levied on the money that is considered above the fair market value. Now analyzing this fair market value of a startup is something that is discretionary on the tax officials, and this is what is leading to huge amount of corruption in this area. This being a discretion itself is leading to bullying by the officers here. This is a scope for bribery for officials, and this is what has been highlighted in the editorial, that there is a need to make a proper system whereby the fixed market value is something that can be analyzed as per rules and not on the discretion of officials. So that is what is important vis-a-vis the angel tax. And that's all for today's discussion. I thank you all for watching today's video.